I'm Larry Menti. Welcome to Another Thing. When Kate Steinle was murdered in San Francisco, we all learned about sanctuary cities together. Her alleged murderer was in this country illegally and had been deported several times for committing crimes. The federal government wanted to deport him again, but he wasn't turned over to immigration because under the sanctuary city statutes, local governments can ignore federal immigration law. Ellen Kolodziej reports that there are more sanctuary cities than you would think. Ellen.
In 1996, Congress passed a law that requires all local governments to cooperate with the feds on all immigration issues. But more than 200 so-called sanctuary cities, including Philadelphia and New York, routinely ignore these laws. But after the murder of Kate Steinle in San Francisco, a lot of people are demanding change.
If there's outrage out there, there should be. People who are not even supposed to be here are committing violent crimes against Americans. Public safety is at risk, and we need to have a coherent immigration policy. We don't have it, and in the absence of it, we're having these terrible consequences.
Professor Jan Ting has been teaching immigration law at Temple University for almost 40 years. He says the argument that sanctuary cities help local officers foster positive relationships with immigrants just doesn't make sense, and something drastic needs to be done.
If the murders of American citizens by people who are not supposed to be here, who the federal government was actually pursuing, and without the cooperation of state and local government, if that doesn't trigger a strong reaction, what does that tell us about the state of America right now?
Congress recently held hearings after the shooting death of 32-year-old Kate Steinle in San Francisco. Prosecutors charged Francisco Sanchez, an illegal immigrant deported 5 times before this latest arrest. And even though the feds knew he was here illegally, the locals allegedly did nothing to get him off the streets.
If cities like San Francisco are not complying with federal detainers, why don't you make them mandatory?
I think that would be a huge setback in our ability to work with state and local law enforcement, and I suspect they would agree as well.
Both houses of Congress have their own version of a bill called Kate's Law that would stop all federal funding for law enforcement for these sanctuary cities. But Professor Ting and many experts around the country are not sure that these bills will ever become the law of the land. Reporting for Another Thing, I'm Ellen Kolodziej.
All right, thanks a lot, Ellen. And to talk more now about sanctuary cities, we are pleased to be joined by Sergeant Carmelo Rodriguez of the Trenton Police Department. Thank you so much for being here. I know Trenton has the designation of being a sanctuary city. I want to point out right up front that sanctuary cities are different, that there are 287 in the country. Some states are sanctuary states, some counties, some municipalities, but the regulations of a sanctuary city can be different from state to state and city to city. So I wanted to clear that up front, because what happens in Trenton may not be the same as what happened in San Francisco when Kate Steinle was killed back in July. And I bring that up because the whole conversation about sanctuary cities started when a man who killed this young woman, we found out, was protected under the statute of a sanctuary city and not turned over to immigration, and he had been deported 5 times and had a long criminal record. Could that happen in Trenton?
At this point, the way the city of Trenton operates, there's that possibility, but we're operating, I believe, in a very firm manner in that we have.
Let me stop you on that. Okay. There's a possibility of that in Trenton?
Well, the reason I say that is because we do have undocumented individuals that are pending perhaps deportation or perhaps federal action that are out, but being monitored by the local ICE agents.
But whose jurisdiction would they be under at that point? So you said that they're awaiting deportation. So they've already been turned over to federal immigration by your department, and they could be out on the streets still as they await their deportation hearing.
Correct, but these are not individuals that are violent or violent individuals. These are individuals that perhaps were, part of a bigger investigation and don't pose a threat to, the community. Therefore, actions are the way it's approached it's differently, as opposed to an individual who, an undocumented immigrant who committed a criminal act or was arrested for driving while intoxicated, you know, the approach by the local ICE office is different. Detainers are issued. A lot of times they're held at the county detention center pending transfer to the federal facility. So, you know, I say that because there are no absolutes. You know, an individual that is doesn't pose a threat initially to the community, you never know. Human behavior is unpredictable. It's the only reason I state that.
Well, the illegal immigrant who killed Kate Steinle on July 1st had a long criminal history, but no violence. It was all drugs. There was nothing violent in his past, nothing that would have raised an alarm that he might just shoot somebody on a pier one day like he did to this young woman who just got a job and was excited about being in San Francisco, which is why everybody's kind of grabbing on to her case. So to you saying that they don't have a violent history, he didn't have one.
Okay.
And so he was out on the streets.
Okay.
But it doesn't even sound like he was ever turned over to immigration. They just ignored a federal warrant for him. And they claimed that because they were a sanctuary city, they were allowed to do that. Is that your understanding of what happens in Trenton?
No, in Trenton, to the best of my knowledge, that's not the way we operate. Again, if we just don't randomly go out and inquire about an individual's immigration status. You know, that's a slippery slope. You know, I'm talking racially influenced policing, which is against the law, which, you know, has been a problem in the past in the state of New Jersey, and it's been addressed, you know, rightly so. But anytime we have a situation where we're conducting a criminal investigation or a driving while intoxicated scenario, and we have reason to believe that the individual is undocumented, we will inquire. And if that is the case, they are, you know, it's noted. The local prosecutor's office is made aware of it. Our partners at the local ICE office are also made aware, notified immediately. They will issue a detainer pending the state charges. And as I said before, the individual is detained locally at the county jail facility or transferred up to the federal facility up in North Jersey.
Because the way I understood sanctuary cities to be, and again, the rules are different, is that just because you apprehend an individual, you're not doing immigration's job. You can ignore federal law and not turn them over if you choose not to. That's what I believe the sanctuary city was.
Well, you know what, maybe other cities operate that way. Again, I can only speak for the city of Trenton, New Jersey. We do not operate that way. Again, we do not go around just simply, you know, without cause inquiring, detaining individuals on the streets and inquiring about their immigration status. But if we are actively involved, again, in a criminal investigation or a DUI incident, we will if we have reason to believe. And if that is the case, it's found to be that the individual is undocumented in the country illegally, we will refer them over to our local partners at the ICE office out of Marlton, New Jersey.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in. I think it's so important that, and the Trenton Police Department has been wonderful at this, at addressing issues, even if sometimes it's uncomfortable to address. And you always stand up and you're always here, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for being here. When we come back, we're going to switch topics and deal with the issue of teen suicide, and we have a very personal story when we come right back.